Princess Leia hairdo on? Check. Hey everyone, this video is about how I rock my How I rock my theremin. I am never going to be a theremin virtuoso. It's just not in the cards. And there are those out there who are phenomenal. Really, just years of experience and technique and talent. I don't, how many, it's not gonna. So when I rock my theremin, when I rock my theremin, I cheat. So I'm going to show you we're going to step through setting up the voltage outputs from the theremin as I dump them into my modular system. And then I'll show you the fruits of that labor. We'll listen to that real quick. And then what we're going to do is we're going to live record my solo into a piece I've been working on called Chroma Obscura. In fact, by the time you see this video, my Chroma Obscura video will already be released. It'll be out there. So this is sort of a forward look, but it's a backward look. Does that make sense? Anyway, so you'll actually hear me do a live performance. Live in front of a studio audience. Well, maybe you aren't really a studio audience and it's not really live, but you know what I'm saying. So let's start with the whole what I'm plugging in first. Each of the pieces I'm plugging in, and I'll explain to you what I'm doing as I'm doing it, why I'm doing it. All right, let's go with that. I'm going to take the CV out for pitch and the gate out. I'm going to toss those into some modules and my matriarch. My TR8S is a phenomenal tempo divider. We'll use the TR8S as a tempo divider for the matriarch. My TR8S is going to set the groove and will be synced with Ableton using the trigger out. The trigger out will go into my matriarch. So we want to get that TR8S tempo divide into the clock on my matriarch. This is my rear view mirror, so I can see what's going on in the back of my matriarch to plug stuff in. So now we'll set up our arpeggiator to 2 octaves and play and hold on. And if we do that, when we start our TR8S, oh, there it is. Boop. Our rate division is now synchronized with the BPM of 90. Recall our brown cable was gate out of the back of the theremin. I'm going to toss it into utility, and then I will have the trigger ins to both of the envelope generators on the matriarch be triggered, opened by the gate. I want to use my expression pedal to modulate the cutoff on the filter. So back to the rear view mirror we go. Into a mult utility. And we'll follow the green then, the green out into the filter, cutoff 1 and 2. Recall, we use the pink cable as the pitch out, the CV pitch out. I know this doesn't look like it's pink, but it's pink. That's the CV out, this one right here, right? This cable right here is out to my DMM on my oscilloscope, so I can track my 1 volt per octave as I'm seeking to make sure I'm in the right pitch. And this red then, this cable out, this patch cord out, is my cheating cable. That's right, I'm cheating. Hi. All right, so these 2 cases here, this entire synth is fully analog, right? It's a recreation of the Moog System 55. There's also some System ARP 2500s. There's some System 100 Rolands. I have a Buchla. They're surface mount devices, the resistors, the capacitors, the amplifiers, the SOIC small outline integrated circuits that have embedded in them transistors and amplifiers and inductors and that's all part of this, right? All analog, except for 2 things. One, my MIDI control, all right? If you're gonna have MIDI, you have to have a CPU to manage the traffic. And then my guilty pleasure, okay? It's guilty. I'll show you that. So the analog synth came with 2 open hit point plates. And what do you put into 2 open hit point plates? Well, I put in a 2 hit point quantizer. It's my guilty pleasure. There is my in coming in from the buffered mult. Remember, we turned the pink wire into the patch cord, the red patch cord, and then out of the red patch cord, basically out of the quantizer, we're going to dump that into the oscillators on the matriarch. We'll put that into oscillator 1, and if we oscillator 1 it with an external source, that will leapfrog. If you don't put something else in between, that'll leapfrog to all 4 oscillators. So all 4 oscillators now are being managed by the output of the theremin, the control voltage for the frequency. All right, so let's go to the telestrator just to make sure we're all on the same page as to what the setup looks like. You okay with that? No, we're doing it anyway. So here's the generalized diagram, and you can see here I'm utilizing standardized symbols with some standardized notation. That all comes from electronic music from Alan Strange, Synthesizer, Systems, Techniques, and Controls, right? Great book. And I'm utilizing a template because, as Lady Gaga sings, I'm built that way. So anyway, all right, so what's going down here, this is the generalized map of all of the locations. Let's go ahead and route them now. So if you remember correctly, behind the theremin, there was actually 3 outs. There's a volume out, a CV out for frequency, 1 volt per octave, and then a gate. Well, we chose the gate and the frequency out, control voltage. The frequency was pink, the gate was brown. I don't have brown, I don't have pink, but let's just go with this, right? So a theremin, let's just pretend this is the pink. This is the pink out of the theremin into the quantizer. And then out of the quantizer, into the oscillators. And then each of these oscillators then is linked, internally linked. If you don't patch something else between them on the matriarch, they are all linked, right? And then out of the oscillators, they go bloop into the filter, and then out of the filter into the amp, and out of the amp into our DAW. And the DAW then has got delay, EQ, compression, and reverb by effects. So that's the most straightforward signal path for the control voltage for the oscillators through the filter and through the amplifier. Now, recalling there was that brown output of the theremin, that was the gate, right? And what that gate is going to do is that's going to fire the envelopes. There's 2 twin envelopes. There's an envelope for the filter, and there's an envelope, let's go ahead with this then. There's also an envelope then for the amplifier. So those 2 signal traces are the gate. That's gate. And then this is frequency. Now, we played this a little bit because we recognize that the keyboard is also a voltage control of the oscillators, and it's additive. Whatever key I strike on the keyboard, it adds the voltage to what the theremin's tossing in. They're additive. Well, and also then we were playing with that arpeggiator on the matriarch. So the keyboard bloop, is zipping into the ARP, and the ARP is zipping into then the signal path for the oscillators. And then we played one more little game, and that was with the TR-8S. The TR-8S sent out the trigger pulse to put the ARP in time with the beats per minute that I'm interested in for the piece I'm working on. This is actually 90 BPM, and that's actually quarter notes, but it doesn't really matter. So that's the QUART, quarter notes. And then finally, there was one more little thing we did, and that was the expression pedal. And the expression pedal, that's a variable resistor, the foot pedal, and it's also dumping into the filter, and it's modulating the cutoff frequency. Ooh, that's nice and messy, isn't it? All right, so this is then the system. The Theremin is dumping into a quantizer, adding its voltage to the keyboard, and the beep-boo on the ARP, and the beep-boo is coming, the rate is coming from the TR-8S through the 4 oscillators through filter, through amplifier, filter modulated both by the envelope for the filter cutoff, and then the amount of cutoff based on the expression pedal into the DAW. That is our setup. So the quantizer, let's just talk about that really briefly. Because what the quantizer is doing is kind of making all of this possible. It's my guilty little cheat, right? But the quantizer is basically doing what a keyboard does. It's separating voltage by steps that the keyboard spits out. And the quantizer, this 2 HP quantizer, I'm not trying to get you to buy one. I'm not trying to sell one. It's just what I'm using, all right? But it does allow you to set up what scale you want to run. And if you want to run, pentatonic, major, minor, mixolydian, Dorian, whatever, right? And then these are all based on the root note of C, but the keyboard, the matriarch, because the voltage is all additive, I can kick off the root note at any note. I could have the root note be F sharp. I could have F sharp and then run a Dorian, basically a Dorian scale on the quantizer. Now, what I want to tell you is this. I don't go and do all the math on this, right? What I do is use my ears. I have a piece of music that I'm already running. Does this scale sound good? Actually, this scale kind of does sound. It's working with the region of the music that I'm working on. So I'm picking the scale based on how it sounds and the root note based on how it sounds. So while I recognize all of this music theory is behind the quantizer, I'm just picking out the one that sounds the best. So now let's put all this stuff on here and kind of see how it sounds. Time, right? Okay, it's going to be kind of hard showing this going on all at once here, right? The recording's going. Kind of. Let's get some effects on it. I've picked my root key down here. See? You can't really see that, but it's on the matriarch. Silence. Right? Now I also have over here an oscilloscope. You can kind of hard to see. I have my TR-8S. Obviously, boom! Theremin. And if you can see here on the screen, this is what I'm going to be orchestrating. I'm going to be playing improv along with this. That's the plan. All right? So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Okay. Here goes nothing. that's coming together. Do you agree? Hey, we've got agreement. It's coming together. Yes. So that is part of a piece called Chroma Obscura. It can be found on my YouTube page, HA''DLBAH at YouTube. I'll be your first hit. And all these lectures I do that you can find on my YouTube page, they're for your use. Use them as you see fit. Hey, plagiarism is the highest form of flattery except at a public university. So there we go. Don't try it there. All right. So again, this piece, Chroma Obscura, look it up. I think you might enjoy it. And like I do at the university, I answer your questions. We don't have, I use Canvas at the university as our learning tool, online learning tool. Well, here it's YouTube. So ask your questions through comments, right? And I will answer your comments just as if you were my students. It's my pleasure. So with that, I think we're done here. So we'll talk to you later.